and
knowledge.
we've been trying to get Bruce for a minute,
Yeah, we've been
to the center. So this is, we made it. We made it, you all.
So yeah,
we got him here.
So if you look around and see anybody that's missing that you know supposed to be here, text them, because we going right in.
We don't want them to miss it.
I don't like dwelling. I'm a punctual guy, and I try to teach for everyone to be punctual. We got that. We got our own technical time. What is it? CP, colored people time. Yeah. So when we give a time, let's try to be here. Others are on the way. Many others are on the way, but I'm trying to talk a little longer before they can come. And I'm going to let my wife say something. If they're not here by then, we're going to introduce the speaker, and we're going to let Bruce give you guys knowledge. Anybody looking for a home? Yeah. Well, Bruce, that sounds pretty good to me. But me and my wife have been working with Mr. Canada since
at least 8 years. And we've been telling everybody, sir, you are verified. Bruce Canada
is verified.
Is verified. Really, we know that ×3. So yes, so he's really been amazing with working with us. If you can work with us and get us approved through our situations,
especially the
you're
first
verified. Yes, yes.
And then Miss Terry
Impossible
Booker,
situations.
we thank God for Terry.
Yes, yes.
Blessings to her.
Don't she look amazing, you all? And fly.
Absolutely. And we were actually recommended to Miss Booker through Mr. Canada.
Yes.
And man, that team came together
and made it happen.
Power pack.
Yes.
And made it happen. We prayed the day before closing though. We had a moment there.
Oh yeah.
We had to go to the highest.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. Yes.
So Bruce have, for those of you that may know, some of you know, we brought I think 3 particular properties from Mr. Canada, and we were referred to Mr. Canada by a member here at the center, Mr. Maurice Ray. This was about 10 years ago.
He purchased his first home. Yeah.
Through Mr. Canada, gave me a card, because I'm a barber as well. So when Maurice came to get a haircut, he said, Pastor, you guys been looking for a home to purchase? I said, yeah, I think I'm still interested. He said, check this fella out here. I think he's pretty good. And I tucked it in my back pocket. Hey, years later, here we go.
Yes.
So thank you guys, and then Mr. Tracy Gooch.
Yes, I can't wait.
Man.
I'm excited, sir, because we have 2 men on the panel.
2 men on the panel.
Men, you need to make some noise. Because women, we're gonna dominate it because it's Unmasking Barbie.
Right.
So it's easy for us to get a plethora of women.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But when you get men to be involved, so we want to say thank you to both of you, because we do have men. We do have some men in here that is excited, so you represent them as well. Yeah.
And I met Mr. Gooch at Northeast Middle through our admin, Miss Tanika Roberson. We thought to, well, I followed the lead of my wife because Pastor Rachel has a mentorship in the school system called Flavors.
For the young girls.
For the young girls. So some flavor girls here now.
And we got some remaining fruit. And that's been going on for about 8 years, 7, 8 years.
So, I believe it was, I forget who it was at Northeast. They said, y'all don't have anything for the young men?
Mm-hmm. A lot of the young guys are saying.
Yeah, and then there was, because I have a lot going on in my schedule in life, so I was kind of like, I don't want to commit to something that I can't commit to. But we did, and we met Mr. Gooch, and we created a mentorship called GAME, acronym for Gaining and Maintaining Education, because education is very important, very important. And that's how we're going to come out in life, by educating or being educated. And that's what these panelists are going to teach us today, how to become homeowners, how to keep a home.
Yes.
Where your credit need to be, where the market is, all of that good stuff.
And if you want to just purchase homes and become a landlord, or you're into real estate, that's also an awesome niche to have, especially for African Americans who really, per the science that we had looked up and others that were educating us, that African Americans have, I think our net worth is only like globally like $1,400. Net worth is
Is that
super
monthly?
duper low.
Is that
I mean, that's just net worth. It's like, I think it was $1,400.
14 monthly or?
No, sir. Just 14. Your net
That's
worth.
super low. We
That's,
talking about
yeah, we talking about African Americans. You can look it up. Maybe I
we got to look
misquoted.
it
It might
back
be at
up.
1,200 by now, because per where the world system is going after the pandemic, they said it's going from 1,400 net worth to zero net worth. You know, so and I said, wait a minute, don't we got NFL players? I thought we had some money, and that they might fall under that 1% somewhere, but we're technically broke, and it's going to zero net worth. And one of the reasons why is because they said we really don't own anything. We don't own real estate. So yes, sir. So I would really want us to really think about in this gaping hole timing. And I'm not Bruce Canada, so this is my disclaimer. But I'm just saying, me and my husband have gravitated to that gaping hole system and have tried to not just buy us a home, but to own a few homes. And we're looking to try to every year purchase something. If it's a townhome,
mess with Bruce every year.
Oh, every year we're gonna stress him out.
Year.
That's our mindset, is to own real estate, not just buy a home, because we want to have more than just what we need to afford to live. Okay, so I'm not Bruce Canada. I don't want to take their space.
We're going to get out of the way, but
Yeah.
on the way bringing Dr. Phoebe from the airport yesterday, she said one of the greatest things in her life she regret is that she didn't look to own, not just to live in, but to own to rent.
Yeah, to be a landlord.
At a very early age. Of course, they're doing it now.
Yeah.
But she said she regretted if she would have really did it when she was early or young. That who knows where she would be now. But yeah, anything else? And we're gonna.
Yeah. So we just want to. I really want to thank everybody, because I know the sacrifice it costs to get up early. I know you might still be, sleeping. You don't know you're here. Wake up. Wake up, everybody. But it's a lot of you all here, and I know I'm not an early bird person. I'm just forced out the bed this morning. I'm zombie like, but I'm so high off of education,
Yeah.
and us learning beyond just church. So I'm really up. I'm up off of a different, strength, but I'm up. But I want to say thank you so much. And again, as my husband previously stated, please encourage somebody to get up, because we just don't want them to miss. We don't want them to miss the wealth of knowledge that's going to be.
We're always trying to figure out how.
Yeah.
But when it's getting ready to be taught, we're missing.
Yeah, we don't show up for this. We got to sacrifice. Yeah.
So this is what we're going to do. Get a. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we all got waters for the family. Good stuff. Yes. So let's get. Who's going to introduce Mr. Canada here? Mr. Heron. Wonderful, at this time for this introduction. God bless you guys.
Yes. Get ready.
Good morning. God bless each and every one of you. Hope everyone had a restful night. At this time, I would like to introduce our first guest. Senior mortgage banker Bruce Canada joins Atlantic Bay Mortgage Group at the Greensboro, North Carolina branch location. In 1997, Bruce started his career as a wholesale mortgage originator. He transitioned to a retail mortgage originator in 2009. And as he worked for several regional and national banks with 22 years of experience in the mortgage business and 12 years as a realtor, he understands the ins and outs of the home buying process. Bruce says, "I enjoy helping my clients make their home dreams come true. Buying a home is one of the most significant purchases in someone's life. I am passionate about helping each client navigate the loan process, being the advocate every step of the way, and ensuring their financial decisions make the most sense for their future." He is licensed in North Carolina and specializes in first-time home buyers, construction loans, and in government financing. He is a board member of the Housing Consultants Group, which is a nonprofit organization that provides financial literacy and home buyers counseling. He serves on the board for the Greensboro Housing Development Partnership, providing ideas on affordable housing programs for the city. In his spare time, you can find him reading, exercising, or hanging out with his wife, Penny, daughter, Tracy, and son, Austin. At this time, I would like to welcome and introduce to you Bruce Canada.
Wow. I am hoping I can live up to all this. Jeez. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I am Bruce Canada, and a lot of people ask me a lot of times, is it pronounced Canada? Yes, it is. It's just like the country, as I always tell people. So to tell you a little bit about myself, and then just kind of tell you a little bit about this financing piece, because as Pastor Rachel said, financial ownership or financial responsibility kind of begins with owning a house. You know. So what I want to do is tell you just a little bit about myself, and then we'll go into a little bit about what it kind of takes to own a house in today's market. Thank you. I've been doing this business since 1997, and I started out kind of at a company that was owned by H&R Block at the time. These were people that do your taxes. And so what we did is we supplied money to mortgage brokers. So if you went into a mortgage broker shop, you never saw me. I always looked at you on a piece of paper. And I could say yes or no based on the information that was on the paper. So then I'd turn around and I'd call this mortgage broker up and I'd say, hey, we got money. Because what we did is we wholesaled the money to the mortgage broker. I used to tell people we used to sell money. Like, what does this mean? It could be a little sketchy at times, right, when you say that. But that's what I used to do is we used to sell money. So this was back in 1997. Things were going along pretty well until 2007, 2008. Right? Market crashes. Now, that business that I was in at that time closed. I went from there, kind of doing the same thing at BB&T at the time. And this was a division of BB&T that people didn't even know existed, actually. They had been in business for 15 years before I got there. Now, the way this division was set up is that if you went into a normal BB&T branch and it didn't fit their normal portfolio, they would call our division. I'd look at you on a piece of paper. I'd call that person back at the bank and I'd say, we got a loan for you. Now, as I said, this division had been in business for 15 years before I got there. 2 years after I got there, they closed. Oh, okay. It ain't working out too good. So I went from there and I went to Wells Fargo. Now, every time I say Wells Fargo, I get this funny look on people's faces. Okay? Let me just put this disclaimer out here. Anything that you heard that happened at Wells Fargo, I didn't do it. Okay? I was not that guy. But the dynamics were a little different at Wells Fargo because if you know where CarMax is here in Greensboro, right? Right across the street, there is this office complex. And that's where Wells Fargo does their mortgage lending. So the dynamics were different there because I changed from being a wholesale person to a retail person. And this means that now you're coming in my office and we're sitting down talking just like this here. I think that's probably when you and I first met, right? So you come in my office, we sit down and talk. Now I'm looking at you, not just on a piece of paper, but we're talking. You know, I got to tell you yes or no to your face. So, so at that point, we put the deal together, and I send it off to Wells Fargo, and you got a mortgage at Wells Fargo. So everything's okay. I think I stayed at Wells Fargo for about 4 years, left there and went to First Citizens Bank, a very good bank, large bank here in North Carolina. Stayed there for about 6 years, and I just moved over to Atlantic Bay Mortgage about 2.5 years ago. It's a very large mortgage company out of Virginia Beach. My office, I have 2 offices, one here in Greensboro, if you know where the baseball stadium is downtown. That building that's attached to the baseball stadium, that's where our new office is, and I also have an office in High Point, not too far from the Palladium. So it kind of gives you a little bit of history about myself and the things that I've been doing. But I did want to kind of tell you a little bit about this mortgage process because this is a big deal. You know, in the last couple of years, with regards to COVID and things of that nature, the market has become a lot more difficult to navigate. Okay? So, the first thing I throw out when I kind of do this talk is I want to just a show of hands. Does anybody here watch HGTV? Yeah. There's some pretty cool shows on there, right? You got the little Flipping Brothers, you got Property Virgin, you got all this kind of stuff going on HGTV. But here's the thing that happens on HGTV. Everything that happens on HGTV happens in 30 minutes, right? Everything at the end of it, you see? See? But when you're buying a house, this is not HGTV. You know, my wife said to me one time, I watched those shows. They're pretty good shows. My daughter religiously watches HGTV. Okay? But my wife pointed out to me something one time. We were looking at a show, and at the beginning of the show, it was snowing. Right? At the end of the show, it was in the middle of the summer. But that show still took 30 minutes, right? I'm going to tell you, when you go through this process of buying a house, it is not HGTV. It is not going to happen in 30 minutes. And I always tell people, I'm not necessarily going to guarantee you that you're going to be the happiest person at the end of this whole transaction. Someone said to me one time, buying a house is like having a baby. Now, personally, never had a baby. But I understood what they were talking about. You don't necessarily want to go through the process. You want the end result. And that's what you have to kind of look for is the end result. So there are going to be a lot of things that you have to go through when you buy a house. Okay? There's a lot of documentation that you need when you buy a house. Because as I told that little timeline of my story, one of the things that I forgot in that particular case is that what people don't understand when you buy a house, and you might close on a loan today, somebody's still looking at your paperwork 6 months down the road. And if they don't like the stuff that's in that folder, they go back to the lender and say, you got 30 days to fix this. And if you don't fix it within 30 days, that money that some institution, whether it's Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, y'all kind of heard these terms, these are companies that supply money to the industry. They'll come back to that lender and say, if we don't like that paperwork within 30 days, that money that we gave your company, you got to give it back. So back around 2007, 2008, there were a lot of crazy things that went on in the industry. A lot of fraud, a lot of things that were happening. Some of the biggest mortgage fraud cases occurred right here in Greensboro and High Point. I knew some of those people that ended up going to the pokey and all this stuff. It's not worth one loan to me to go to the pokey. Okay? So that's why we are very specific about the information that we ask for. Okay? So, some of the things that I do, and I do talk to the city, there's a lot of money out here for the city of Greensboro for down payment assistance and things of that nature. And sometimes they ask me to do classes for those. And one of the things that I point out at the very beginning when I talk about this is that there are two things that you need when you're buying a house. Two major things that you need to navigate this kind of market. You need decent credit and you need some money. If you don't have those two things, you're running into a lot of problems. Because here, and I'm going to give you a couple pointers on this. The money piece dictates how much in today's market, and Terry's going to talk about this a little bit. There's one thing in North Carolina that North Carolina is probably one of 5 states that even deal with this. And it's a term that's called due diligence. Okay? Now, you can assume that every house that's on the market is going to have more than one offer on it. Just go ahead and make that assumption. So what you have to do is put yourself in a position that you're going to be better than the next person. So what that entails a lot of times, number one, is this due diligence. And all this is money that you're giving the seller for them to take their house off the market. But it also says if that loan doesn't close for whatever reason, they keep your money. So So there are times that you can put up $2, 3, 4, 10,000, $20,000 in due diligence just to get the offer. Okay, it's credited back to you when the loan closes, but that's what you have to do to compete in this market. So as I tell people, I look at bank statements, credit reports, this all day long, and when I see somebody bring me a bank statement and trying to buy a house, they have $500 in the bank. This is not the time for you to buy a house. Okay, you need to have some money because there's going to be a lot of fees on the front end of this transaction that you're going to need. You get all this stuff kind of credited back to you at the end, but you need it on the front end, right? So that's the key right there. Is number one, you got to have some money. All right, because lenders also look at once you close a loan, how much money do you have left? We don't want you going into a situation where you close a loan today and you have no money next week. That will happen. You know, you don't want to be in that position where you're just skating by to buy a house. You know, I'm working with a couple right now. It's kind of interesting because as I look at their bank statements, and they're trying to buy a house, and the payment's going to be somewhere around $1,000 a month. And I look at their bank statements, and right now, with no rent because they're living at home, I can't see that they have $1,000 left over. And the question I asked them the other day was, okay, you got a husband, you got a wife, you're both living at your parents' home. Right now, you're trying to buy this house where your bills are going to increase by $1,000 after you close. How can I see just from what we're dealing with right now that you're going to be able to make that $1,000 payment? That's how a lender looks at this situation. You know, so you got to have reserves, money that's left over after this loan closes. All right. So that's going to be one of the first keys that you have to have money. The other thing that I'll point out, and this is where a lot of times when I do these talks, this is where I get the most questions from, is it pertains to credit. Now, we can have some challenging credit. And you can see online, you can go online, and I have people all the time say, well, you know, I see online that I can have a 500 credit score and get a mortgage. So I got a 550. Am I good? No. No. Okay. Because here's the thing. It goes back to you have to be in the best position to get a loan. As I said earlier, every house out there is going to have at least more than one offer. So now you got the sellers out there that are dictating what offers they're going to accept based on the financing that's out there. Now we can get into a whole different tangent about the types of loans that are out there. But a lot of times sellers in their mind have this misconception about an FHA loan. It's going to be more challenging from them from a seller standpoint. So if you're bringing me an offer with an FHA loan, me as a seller sometimes they're going to be like, I don't want to do that loan because it's an FHA loan. I'm not going to accept it because it's an FHA loan. Yeah. So that's why we try to work towards, if at any kind of situation, but see if we can make that deal work as a conventional loan. And in a seller's mind, a lot of times, that's a little bit more easy. That's a little easier to deal with. They don't have to deal with appraisal stuff as badly as they do on an FHA loan. Okay? So, our company has a minimum credit score of 600. Now, loans can go down. Your credit score can actually go down to a minimum of 350. Now, every time I look at credit, and I talk about this, I say, whether you have a good credit score or whether you have a bad credit score, you work hard at each one of them. And let's think about that. Now, some of y'all catch that when y'all leave a little bit later. You're like, I know what he's talking about. Okay? Because if you got that bad credit score, you saw that bill come in and you're just like, you know what? Put this over here. Okay? You got that 800 credit score, you are paying attention to everything. You're on top of everything. And lenders look at that. Okay? So what you want to do is put yourself in a position to have as good a credit score as possible. One of the things that I look at on the credit report that's kind of interesting, and it irritates me a lot of times when I see it. The first thing when you look at a credit report is, well, it has the credit scores on there. And the way that lenders, just so you know how lenders look at these credit scores, um, there are typically 3 credit scores that you have, right? Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. And the way that we look at it is, whatever the highest score that you have is, we disregard it. Whatever the lowest score is you have, we disregard it. The score that's left, that is your middle credit score. That's what we use. Now, there are 2 people on the loan, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the situation is, each one of you now have a middle credit score, right? So now the system uses the lower of the 2 middle credit scores. So if one of you has great credit and one of you has jacked up credit, it's going to use the one with the jacked up credit. That's what happened. Okay? So, you got those credit scores up there. Next thing on the credit report are all of the negative stuff. And it's funny the way they do it on the credit report because they put it in bold print. They want everybody to see that this is the negative stuff. And the thing that gets me is I see on these credit reports a lot of times like $25 Sprint and Verizon charge-offs. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Sprint and Verizon don't report to the credit bureau until you don't pay them their $25. And that $25 will change your credit score by 20, 30 points easily. It does not matter if it's $25 or $2,500. Once they press the button and turn it into a collection, your score will change. Now you can go in the next day and you can say, can I pay that $25? And they'll say, yep, and they'll take your money. But unless they take it off of your credit report, it will do no good. That's why we don't even care that you pay it at that point. It's already affected your credit score, right? Okay? So then you got all of the good stuff that's on the credit report. They put it in regular font. They don't care if hey, you paid it off, so no big deal. And so then you got the end of the credit report where it also tells you everybody that's looked at your credit and all of this kind of stuff. And we have to kind of understand what's going on with the credit. So, that's why we come in and there's this page on there that tells us everybody that's looked at your credit. And one of the questions I get a lot of times is I get the person that says, Bruce, I'm trying to buy this house, but I also want to get a car. Now, let me tell you, if you're in this position where you're trying to decide, should I get a house, should I get a car, get the house first. And look, anybody will finance a car, right? You hear it on the radio every day. You hear Crazy Kevin Powell, right? Crazy Kevin Powell will finance any car that's out there. But Crazy Kevin Powell will not finance your house, okay? So you got to make sure that you take care of that because once you buy a house, it opens up a world of everything for everybody. Now you've got these companies that are going to sit out there and say, hey, somebody just loaned you $150,000 or $200,000 and give you a $5,000 credit card. But don't do it in reverse. Don't go out there and open up a whole bunch of credit and then expect to get a house because we have to look at all of that stuff. We have to take all of that into consideration. Okay? So, like I said, that's typically where I get the most questions is when I'm talking about credit issues and things of that nature. One of the things that we have the ability to do with our company is to take your credit report, analyze it, and say, okay, this is what you might need to do to improve your credit score. If we run that analysis on there, if we need to move a credit score 5 or 10 points, it might say you need to pay down the debt. A lot of times people will assume if I just pay off everything, then I'm going to be good to go. Well, here's the thing with credit. Credit scores are generated based on activity, whether it's positive activity or negative activity, right? So if you're that type of person that says, I just want to pay off everything, I don't want to owe anybody, I don't want to owe anybody anything. Well, all that's well and good, but in 6 months, you will have no credit score, okay? So you got to have some kind of activity out there that's going to generate a score. That's why we might sometimes we might come to you when we're analyzing that credit and say, pay down a debt for $10. Don't pay it off. Pay it down to $10 so at least there is some activity that's still out there that's going to generate a credit score. Okay? So that kind of gives you kind of a background, a little bit of uh, I guess a little bit of background about what I do and how this process is. But I'll throw out a couple questions just because my good friend Terry helped me with a little bit of information yesterday, and we've been talking about buying a house. And I know you guys have a few houses that y'all rent out, so y'all are the landlords out there. That's pretty good. But let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea what the average rent in Greensboro is? Well, let's say a 3-bedroom house. Average in Greensboro as of last month, the average. So this means that this is not what the number is, but $1,220. That's your average 3-bedroom rental in Greensboro. Now there are some areas like over in Grandover where that average is $2,100. Okay, but let's take a look at the average. $1,200, $1,220. That's equivalent to a mortgage of about $175,000, $180,000. Okay, so I have no problem. I'd like to own houses and all that too. But if there's a way that I can teach somebody to own their own house, that's what they need to do. You know, y'all talked about the net worth of individuals out here today, and it does bug me that we are not doing that well. I deal with all types of people. Okay, I look at all types of bank statements. I look at all types of deals that are out there. We definitely need to do better. We have to do better. Now, my daughter is going through this same process right now. I'll have to throw in a plug for her real quick. She is moving here from Notre Dame to be a professor at Duke. Okay, and so she's but the funny thing is that she's been hearing me go through this process and talk to people for the last 25 years. And that's time for her to buy a house. And it is so funny to see the anxiety of first-time homebuyers. Particularly somebody in my own house, and she's been hearing me talk about this all the time. But these are challenges that everybody has to go through. It's not like banks pick on anybody particularly. We all do the same thing. We all need the same information. So as I tell people when you go through this process, whoever you're dealing with, and hopefully by the end of the day, if y'all want to deal with me, that's fine. But whoever you're dealing with, just make sure you get them what they need. They'll close a loan. They're not out here to make your life miserable. But they're out here to say, if we loan you $200,000, we want to make sure we get that $200,000 back. That's why there's going to be a whole lot of information that we're going to ask you for. There's going to be a particular piece of paper. I always say it all the time. If you're that person that throws away a whole bunch of stuff, I'm going to guarantee you that piece of paper you just threw away, that's the one we're going to need. That is the one we're going to need. Okay? So you got to think about it this way. Any lender is going to be looking at a snapshot of your life for 3 years. That's what we need. 3 years worth of documentation. 3 years worth of tax returns. 3 years worth of W-2s. We don't need 3 years of bank statements, but we need 3 years worth of, we need two months worth of bank statements. And we're going to scrutinize everything that goes in there. I tell people all the time, if you don't want somebody looking at your information, I don't want the banks knowing everything about me, don't buy a house. I can tell you everything about yourself looking at your credit report, looking at your bank statements. I can tell you when you went to the ABC store. I can tell you when you went to Victoria's Secret. I can tell you all that stuff. Okay? So, We will know all about you when you buy a house. All right. Well, look, I don't know how much time I had here, but look, I just want to kind of say welcome to you guys. If there's anything that I can do to help you navigate this process of buying a house, I'm definitely more than willing to do it. You know, anything that I can do to help out, because it can be a challenge. This will be the biggest expenditure that you will have for a long time. Whether you're spending $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, this will be the biggest expenditure that you will have for a long time. So you are guaranteed that there's going to be a lot of questions asked. So just kind of get through it. Just remember what the end result is you being in the house. That's the goal that you all want to work for. Okay? So if there's anything that I can do moving forward, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you guys out. And, we just take it from there. Okay? Yeah. I mean, y'all let me know. And 6 more minutes. Okay. Let me do this. Are there any specific questions that anyone needs to ask? I'll be more than happy to answer it. Oh, okay. Cool. Okay, well, we'll do that in a little while. All right, so 6 more minutes. I can definitely feel that. Let me just talk about some of the things that we go through. Let me go back to Greensboro. Let me tell you something. In Greensboro, there's a lot of money if you're trying to buy a house. There's a lot of money out here for you. Okay. The city of Greensboro right now has $10,000 that they offer for first-time homebuyers. Now, all of these programs require a specific credit score. Well, Greensboro doesn't have a credit score requirement as of today, but that guideline is getting ready to change. It is going to change. Let me tell you, since the bond was approved, earlier in the week, there's going to be new guidelines that's going to come out for the city of Greensboro probably within the next 30 days. And one of them will be a credit score requirement. So they will have a minimum credit score of 600 to get funds from the city of Greensboro. That's $10,000. You also have North Carolina Housing, which is an organization I deal with quite a bit. They're based out of Raleigh. They provide the largest amount of down payment assistance in the state. They offer up to one of the main program is $8,000, but they actually have a program out there that they will offer up to $40,000 towards down payment. There are some very specific guidelines for that, but all of those programs with North Carolina Housing require at least a 640 credit score. Now, remember what I said about credit scores earlier, how we calculate credit score. 640 is not the same as 639. See, when we look at these credit scores, we don't grade on a curve, we don't add an extra point, we don't do any of that kind of stuff. 639, you get no down payment assistance from them. 640, you can get down payment assistance from North Carolina Housing. So that's why I said earlier, you have to pay attention to where your credit scores are because it can make a difference in how much money you have to work with. So just in those two organizations by themselves, that's $18,000 just right here in the city that you can use for down payment and closing costs. There's a lot of money out here, okay? You just have to do the work to make sure that you can get it. Don't get frustrated at what we ask you for because each one of those organizations is going to ask for something different. All right, now, a lot of it might be redundant, and a lot of times I can say, okay, I've got all of this stuff for Greensboro, so I can use it for North Carolina Housing, but you are going to be guaranteed that there's going to be a lot of questions that they're going to ask you about this whole process, okay? So, you got the money that's out there. Anytime that you do, and there are actually areas in the city that if you buy within a certain area, they've increased that $10,000 up to $15,000, okay? So the city's trying to do some things to revitalize certain areas, so they're offering more money and things of that nature. You're going to be hearing some things come out relatively shortly once these bonds, since the bonds are approved, about these new guidelines. They're going to change some of the guidelines that are out there. They've asked me to kind of look at them to kind of help them with those. So we've thrown some ideas out there that actually we're trying to make it a little bit easier to qualify for some of these loans. Expand some of these guidelines a little bit. So just be prepared for some of those things that are coming out. One of the things, I just talked about one thing that's important, because I was talking about some of the documentation that's required when you buy a house. And one of the things that always kind of gets me, and is, I guess we're in August now, so we're kind of outside of the tax season. But one of the things that you will be guaranteed that you're going to be asked for when you go through this process is going to be a version of your tax returns. Okay? So I get on my little soapbox a lot of times, particularly after tax season, is because a lot of times we're going to come to you, we're going to ask you for tax returns, and a lot of times people say, well, no, I had somebody at my job do my taxes, and this was back in April, and now here it is in August, July, August, and these people are gone. And I'm coming to you and I'm saying, I need your tax return. Anytime you send anything to anybody to get it done, make sure you get it back. Because again, that's going to be the paperwork that we're going to ask you for. So it's going to be difficult in July, August, October to try to track down somebody sometimes to try to get your tax information back and some of the paperwork that's needed. Okay? So just be prepared for some of those things that are going to be thrown out there at you. There are going to be some curveballs. There are going to be some things you're going to be like, man, why are they asking me for the same stuff over and over again? Did y'all have that experience? Okay. It happens. Because you can assume not only are, my processor might be dealing with, actually, she told me the other day, she's got 130 loans in her pipeline. So you have to understand that they're not just looking at your deal, okay? So, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. So that's why when they want something, they want it then, they want it to, and it's going to be very specific, because they're going to take your information and they're going to move it on to the next person to get it done. Just cooperate with them. But again, anything that I can do to help you guys out and answer any kind of questions as we talk later on, I am more than willing to do that. But again, I just want to thank you for inviting me to come and talk to you guys. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm glad that we finally you guys have finally kind of put this together. When I saw this Unmasking Barbie, it took me a minute to the light bulb was like, okay, let me think about this. What is this about here? But I'm glad that you guys invited me. So again, anything that I can do to help anyone here, I am more than willing to do.